Pete the Cat and the Bedtime Blues by Kimberly and James Dean. Pete and the gang are at the beach. They've been having a groovy time in the surf and sand. But now the sun is starting to set. Pete is bummed out. He doesn't want the fun to end. But what can he do? They can't surf in the dark. Then Pete has an idea. "Hey," he shouts, "why should our fun end just because the sun is tired? Let's have a sleepover at my house. That will give us more time for tons of fun." Pete's friends love that idea. "Groovy," says Gus. "Will there be snacks?" asks Alligator. Grumpy Toad points to his motorcycle. "Come on, let's go to Pete's place." The party at Pete's house is far out. The gang orders pizza and plays and plays and plays. Alligator throws around Pete's soccer ball. Gus goes for a ride on Pete's bike. Grumpy Toad drives Pete's remote-controlled car. And Pete draws with his crayons. Finally, the friends decide it's time for bed. The gang rolls out their sleeping bags and puts on their pajamas. "Good night, Gus," Pete says, turning off the light. "Good night, Alligator." "Good night, Grumpy Toad." "Good night, Pete," the friends call. Pete pulls his blanket up high. He fixes his sleeping cap. He squishes around to get comfortable. It has been a long, groovy day, but now he's ready for some shut-eye. Slowly, Pete's eyes close. He is about to catch some Z's when he hears a noise. Clap, clap, clap. Pete sits up and turns on the light. "Who did that?" he asks. "It was me," Grumpy Toad says. "I'm not tired. I don't want to go to bed. I'm going to clap my hands instead." Pete covers his head. "Let's clap tomorrow," he says. "Right now, this cool cat needs to go to bed." Pete turns off the light again. "Good night, Gus. Good night, Alligator. Good night, Grumpy Toad. Time to sleep." "Good night, Pete," the friends call. Pete fluffs up his pillow. He pulls his blanket down, then he closes his eyes. Pete is about to catch some Z's when he hears another noise. Rat-a-tat-tat. Pete turns on the light again. "Who did that?" he asks. "It was me," says Gus. "I'm not tired. I don't want to go to bed. I want to jam." Pete shakes his head. "That was a cool beat, but let's rock out tomorrow instead," he says. "This cat needs to sleep." Pete turns off the light again. "Good night, Gus. Good night, Alligator. Good night, Grumpy Toad. Time to sleep." "Good night, Pete," the friends call. Pete rolls onto his left side. He rolls onto his right side. He is about to catch some Z's when he hears a loud munch. Pete knows that sound. He is sure it is Alligator. He is always up for eating. Pete turns on the light. Sure enough, Alligator is munching on a piece of pizza. Pete sighs. What can he do? All the clapping, rat-a-tat-tatting, and munching are giving him the bedtime blues. Then, Pete has an idea. He gets out his favorite bedtime story and begins to read. As he reads, Pete notices that the room is quiet. There's no more clapping, no more rat-a-tat-tatting, and no more munching. Pete looks up. His friends have gathered around him. They want to hear the story too. Pete turns back to the beginning of the book and begins to read it aloud. His friends settle down and listen. No one makes a sound. Pete yawns as he turns the last page of the book. He has been so focused on the story, he didn't even notice his friends creep off to their own beds. "Good night, sleep tight," he whispers. Pete puts his book down. He turns off the lights and he closes his eyes. Soon, Pete is fast asleep. Dreams of another groovy day of surfing fill his head as the cool cat finally catches some Z's.